UFC 283 is coming up, and Brandon Moreno versus Deiveson Figueiredo will be the co-main event for the card of Glover Teixeira versus Jamal Hill as the main event. And this is a pretty high-profile matchup. In all honesty, this is the quadrilogy. I believe this, I don't want to say it's the first ever because I can't remember off the top of my head. It's 2 in the morning. But it's a quadrilogy, a very important fight. All their fights have been pretty entertaining in all honesty. So I'm super excited for this one as a fan and as someone breaking it down. So let's get right into the breakdown, actually. I don't think I have anything else to say. I am filming this on a Friday. Not necessarily filming on a Friday, but it's coming out on a Friday. So not necessarily know why. I think I planned on doing this as an early prediction, but it just didn't happen. I'm using it for the breakdown, and I'll post the full card predictions on the weekend, so you get to see this earlier, and a week of people can see it. But yeah, let's get right into the breakdown. We have Brandon Moreno, who's 20-6, and Deiveson Figueiredo, who is 20-2. Brandon Moreno is 6 years younger than Deiveson Figueiredo, will be 2 inches taller, and will have a 2-inch reach advantage in this matchup. So, for coming into this fight, like the kind of the narratives and the storylines going on, I guess if you want to call it, going into this fight, we have we have Deiveson Figueiredo, who's coming off an injury, which is why they had to make a interim title bout with Kai Kara-France and Brandon Moreno, who is coming off an injury. Deiveson Figueiredo is, and will likely be his last time at flyweight, is what I'm thinking. I think he's cutting a lot of weight, and he is getting older, so the weight cuts are getting harder. And I think for this bout, I think he might be drained. I'm saying it more as a present tense. I think for this bout, he will probably be drained, which I think will be an issue for him, obviously, in a fight. For Brandon Moreno, Glory MMA, his coach James Krause can no longer participate in anything UFC, so they are not allowing any of the fighters to train at his gym. So they closed it. I don't know if they closed down his gym particularly, but Brandon Moreno had to find another gym to corner him for this matchup. So I think that happened about 6 to 7 weeks before this. So that's a big issue for Brandon Moreno, without a doubt. But yeah, so those are the two narratives going on, or storylines that you want to call it, going on before this matchup. So I'm going to get right into their previous fights. And let's start with Brandon Moreno. So not before that, his last fight against Kai Kara-France, interim title bout, he KO'd Kai Kara-France with a body kick. Is it a body kick, or I believe it was a body kick or a body shot? I'll just go with the body shot, TKO, over Kai Kara-France. Before that, in their 3 Brandon Moreno and Deiveson Figueiredo fights that happened one after another, with not one of them needing a bout other than each other to get there, other than Brandon Moreno in the 4th one, obviously. But so their 3rd fight, which is their latest fight, Brandon Moreno versus Deiveson Figueiredo, it was pretty even, actually, super even. Outside of a couple shots that Deiveson Figueiredo landed, I think this probably could have gone either way. But because Deiveson Figueiredo threw a little bit more of the impacting blows, he's a lot more powerful, a lot more stronger, a lot more bigger than Brandon Moreno. So he was able to land those good blows on Brandon Moreno and win that last fight 3-2. Before that, Deiveson Figueiredo versus Brandon Moreno 2. Brandon Moreno was able to get Deiveson Figueiredo down and choke him out with a rear naked choke in the 2nd or 3rd round. I'm blanking out on what round it is, but I believe it is the 3rd round. I might be wrong, though. And then their first fight, Brandon Moreno versus Deiveson Figueiredo 1. Super competitive. Went to a draw. Very fun fight also. So all 3 of them are fun fights. This one will probably be super fun also. No. Then Deiveson Figueiredo versus Alex Perez happened before that, too. And he won. So yeah, the super fun fight, super entertaining fight, super competitive. These guys match up really well. Obviously, if you couldn't get it more split than this, whoever loses this fight better fight a couple guys to get back there, because I honestly don't want to see a pentology. I don't know what you would call it, like a 5 time match or whatever you want to call it. But for this one, how I think the fight will go, I think so these guys match up, before I get into what I'm about to say, these guys match up super evenly. So I'm not going to, like there's nothing that I can really point out other than in the last fight, Deiveson Figueiredo uses leg kicks really well. Landed like 2 and it immediately put down Brandon Moreno a couple times. Like he just kept going at it and Brandon Moreno kept falling down. It took like 2 to get there. So it's super powerful leg kicks, super powerful in general. But I have noticed that he's super open defensively recently. His striking has been a little bit more wild. It doesn't seem like he's setting up stuff as much. You saw that in the second fight. In the third fight, he did look a lot better doing that. But I can see like his skills. It's either Brandon Moreno's getting a lot better, or it's just starting to even out, or Brandon Moreno starting to get ahead of him a little bit because he is 28 years old. He's still making improvements. But again, in that third fight, we saw Deiveson Figueiredo work with Henry Cejudo, and his wrestling got way better too. So I'm expecting this to be super even. Obviously, Deiveson Figueiredo will have the power advantage and the strength and the size, but I think Brandon Moreno probably will be a little bit more technique, has way more technique, and will probably be setting up his stuff a lot more, just going off of their last few fights. But I do edge this to Brandon Moreno only because Deiveson Figueiredo I guess I'll call a long layoff, was about a little bit short than a year, but about a year also. Layoff with an injury. Getting older, so he's going to have tougher weight cuts. I think that will be an issue for him in this fight. I don't see him staying at 145. 125, not much longer. I think he'll go up to 135 after this one. And if he wins, he'll be fighting for the bantamweight title belt, and we'll try to get the double champ status. But if he loses, I can see him going up to bantamweight. But he is cutting a lot of weight, so I think that'll be a big issue for him. I think he's going to be a lot easier to put down, not necessarily like out cold, but I think he's going to be easier to put down because of the weight cut. And I think Brandon Moreno will be able to do that a few times in this matchup, like they have a couple times. I guess in their last fight, he didn't really put down Deiveson Figueiredo that much, but he was hurting him. But I do think Brandon Moreno will drop Deiveson Figueiredo a couple times in this matchup because of the weight cut. And I think that's basically what's going to win Brandon Moreno the fight. I think this is going to be a stand-up fight. I do think Brandon Moreno will probably try to get the submission at some point. When he does drop him down, of course, he'll probably just lay on top of him, and that'll probably be the round. Kind of like the second fight where he dropped him, was trying to work in submissions and things like that. But Deiveson Figueiredo has gotten a lot better on the ground, so I can see him scrambling out unless he just gets tired towards like the end of the fight. I can see Brandon Moreno winning like a couple rounds at the beginning, dropping him once or twice, and then just staying on him and laying him out for 4 and 5. So this could be 4-1 Moreno, but I'm going to say 3-2 just because they're so even. I'm not going to lean someone that heavy, especially for these guys, because they're so evenly matched. But I do think Brandon Moreno will be better here. I think he'll set up his stuff more. I don't want to say quicker, but I think he's going to be a lot smarter fighting than Deiveson Figueiredo because, like I said, Deiveson Figueiredo isn't, or if not a little bit, isn't setting much of his stuff up a lot. Like he's just kind of winging stuff. At least in the second bout. Third bout, he did a lot better again, but it still wasn't like the same like he was doing before. And again, the weight cut's going to be rough for him. So I'm going to go Brandon Moreno here. But like statistically, if we want to go that, I guess you could lean at Brandon Moreno because they drew. Brandon Moreno won and Deiveson Figueiredo won. Brandon Moreno would win. Again, if you're going off of that logic, if you wanted to, but I think Brandon Moreno does catch him a couple times in this bout. I think Deiveson Figueiredo probably touches him a couple times also, but I think Brandon Moreno, this will be a show. I don't think he'll like outclass him like a Volk Holloway, but I think he will be very competitive in this fight, and I think he will be on the side of getting the knockdowns and hurting Deiveson Figueiredo. So you could see a 4-1 or 3-2 here, but I'm going to be saying like comfortably 3-2 in this matchup. But it could be 4-1. But I'm not going to go there because Deiveson Figueiredo is a monster. So 3-2. Deiveson Figueiredo obviously still has the power, obviously still has the size, and obviously still has the strength. So 3-2 Moreno. I think he's going to be able to drop Deiveson Figueiredo a couple times. Basically take the third fight and flip it around, but I do think Brandon Moreno doesn't get touched as much as Figueiredo. So now I'm not saying that in general. I mean in this upcoming fight. I don't think he'll get touched as much. I don't think they'll be hurting each other, swinging each other around. I think it'll just be generally competitive, and I think Brandon Moreno will edge out a couple of those rounds with the couple drops of Figueiredo. Out of this fight, I think Figueiredo will lose, and I think he'll go up to bantamweight, and then Brandon Moreno will fight Alexander Pantoja, and that's your big fight for 2023. You have your Mexican champ, UFC, and all is good in the UFC for at least this division. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the video. Tapology link will be down below. Again, 3-2 Brandon Moreno. You can why did I put that in there? But you can track your picks and things like that. And I'll post some discussion stuff in there if we get enough people. Yeah, I believe we do have 7 people in there right now. It's pretty easy to create an account. You just pretty much just put in information, honestly. And it tracks all your stuff for all your fights. So you can if you want. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoy the video. I want to see you guys next time.